The Mind Gym Academy presents The Pitcher's Mindset, Learning to Let Go and Trust the Process. Chapter 1, The Weight of the Moment. Chapter 1, The Weight of the Moment. The bullpen phone rang. Christian felt his stomach tighten as the bullpen coach grabbed it, nodding as he listened. Then the words Christian both lived for and dreaded. "Christian, you're in." He exhaled sharply and grabbed his glove, heart pounding as he jogged toward the mound. It was the 8th inning, and his team, the Western State Falcons, held a 1-run lead over their biggest conference rival. The crowd was electric, the kind of atmosphere he used to dream about pitching in. But now it felt like the weight of the game was pressing down on him. He had been here before. Sometimes he thrived, sometimes he faltered. And tonight, he didn't know which version of himself would show up. A strong start. But then, Christian took a deep breath and stepped onto the mound. "Pound the zone. Attack hitters. You've done this 100 times. He fired his first pitch. A strike. The crowd roared. Another pitch. A ground ball to second base. 1 out. His confidence grew as he faced the next batter. 2 quick strikes. Then, a swinging strike 3. Christian clenched his fist. 2 outs. Just 1 more and he'd hand the game over to the closer with a clean inning. He took a deep breath and locked in on the next hitter. First pitch, ball outside. Second pitch, ball inside. "Okay, just relax. Execute." Christian threw a fastball down the middle. Crack. The moment the bat connected, he knew. The ball rocketed into the gap, rolling all the way to the fence. The runner sprinted around the bases as the outfielders scrambled. Christian's chest tightened. The batter slid into third. Safe. A tripla. The tying run was 90 feet away. The pressure hit him like a wave. Everything starts slipping. His coach came out for a quick mound visit. "Breathe, kid. Focus on the next pitch. Get us out of this." Christian nodded, but his hands felt sweaty against the baseball. He stepped back on the mound and faced the next hitter. First pitch, too careful, low for a ball. Second pitch, fastball right down the middle. Another crack of the bat. The ball bounced through the infield. The runner from third scored. Tie game. Christian stood frozen as the stadium erupted. A game he was supposed to shut down had just slipped through his fingers. His coach stepped out of the dugout and signaled to the bullpen. Christian swallowed hard. He was getting pulled. The walk of shame. Christian handed the ball to his coach and started walking toward the dugout. It felt like the longest walk of his life. He avoided eye contact with his teammates, avoided looking at the scoreboard, avoided the disappointed look he knew his coach was giving him. He collapsed onto the bench, running his hands through his hair. Just like that, he blew it. The self-doubt begins. As the game played on, Christian barely paid attention. The Falcons ended up losing in extra innings. He couldn't shake the thought, if I had just made 1 more good pitch, we would have won. His mind spiraled. I let my team down. Maybe I'm not cut out for this role. What if I can't bounce back? No one said anything to him after the game, but they didn't have to. He felt the disappointment in the silence. Sleepless night, heavy mind. That night, Christian lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The inning played on repeat in his mind. The triple, the RBI single, the walk back to the dugout. No matter how much he told himself to move on, he couldn't. What if I mess up again next time? That thought sat like a rock in his chest. And as exhaustion finally took over, one final question haunted him. What if I never get back to my best? Chapter 2, The Mental Spiral. Chapter 2, The Mental Spiral. Christian sat alone in the locker room the next morning, lacing up his cleats in slow, distracted movements. His body was at the field, but his mind? It was still stuck in last night's disaster. The sound of the bat crushing his fastball into the gap. The sight of the runner sliding safely into third. The sting of his coach pulling him off the mound. You let your team down. You blew the game. What if you're not good enough? The thoughts circled in his mind like a loop he couldn't escape. He tried to shake it off, but it clung to him like a weight he couldn't lift. And as he walked onto the field for practice, he knew this wasn't just about one bad outing anymore. It was starting to change him. Overthinking every pitch. During bullpen work, Christian stepped onto the mound, determined to fix everything. Tighten the mechanics, focus harder, be perfect. He took a deep breath, reared back, and fired his first pitch. Ball. He groaned, adjusting his grip. Next pitch, fastball too low. Then, slider that didn't break. The more he tried to control everything, the worse it got. By the end of his bullpen session, his catcher, Jason, shook his head. "Dude, what's going on? You're all over the place." Christian clenched his jaw. "I don't know, man. I'm just off." Jason frowned. "You thinking too much?" Christian didn't answer, because he knew the truth. Losing trust in his game. A few days passed and Christian's confidence only got worse. He wasn't just struggling in the bullpen anymore. He was avoiding it. The coach called for relief pitchers to get their work in, but Christian would wait until the last second before stepping up, hoping someone else would go first. He didn't trust his fastball, didn't trust his breaking pitches, didn't trust himself. And the worst part, he didn't want the ball. For the first time in his life, the thing he had always loved, being called into big moments, now felt like a threat. What if I fail again? What if I lose another game? What if I get pulled and never get back on the mound? The fear was starting to consume him. A veteran's perspective. After practice, Christian sat alone in the dugout, staring at the field. He didn't even notice Jake, a senior pitcher, walking up until he sat down next to him. "You want to talk about it?" Jake asked, tossing a baseball between his hands. Christian shook his head. "I'm good." Jake smirked. "No, you're not. But that's fine. I'll talk. You listen." Christian sighed but didn't argue. Jake leaned back, looking out at the empty field. "I used to be just like you, man. Got called into a close game, gave up a hit, blew the lead. Felt like I let the whole team down." Christian's grip on his water bottle tightened. "Yeah, that sounds familiar." "You want to know the mistake I made after that?" Jake continued. Christian finally looked at him. "What?" "I let it get to me. Started thinking too much. Started playing scared. And the next time I got called in, I was so afraid of failing again that I didn't even give myself a chance to succeed." Christian exhaled. "So what changed?" Jake tossed the baseball into Christian's glove. "I learned that pitching isn't about being perfect. It's about being ready for the next call." The challenge from Jake. Christian rolled the ball in his hand. "Yeah, but what if you go out there again and screw up?" Jake shrugged. "Then you learn from it, and you move on." Christian scoffed. "It's not that easy." Jake leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "No, it's not. But you know what's harder? Carrying failure with you every time you pitch." Christian didn't answer, because deep down, he knew Jake was right. Jake put his hand on his shoulder. "Your next chance is coming, Christian. Whether you like it or not. The only question is, are you going to be ready for it?" The breaking point. That night, Christian sat in his room, staring at the wall. Jake's words echoed in his mind. Pitching isn't about being perfect. It's about being ready for the next call. But how could he be ready when all he could think about was the last time he failed? Christian grabbed a baseball off his desk and squeezed it. Then he made a decision. He wasn't going to run from this. Tomorrow he would show up to the bullpen with a different mindset. He didn't know how to fix it yet, but he was finally ready to try, and that was the first step. Chapter 3. Another shot, another struggle. Chapter 3. Another shot, another struggle. Christian bounced the baseball in his hand as he sat in the bullpen, staring at the scoreboard. Bottom of the 7th. Falcons up by 1. He knew it was coming. This was his role. Late game relief. High pressure moments. And yet, despite all the hours he had spent trying to reset his mindset, he still felt that familiar tightness in his chest. He told himself he was ready, but deep down, he wasn't sure. The call comes. The bullpen phone rang. Christian's heart jumped. The bullpen coach answered, then turned to him. Christian, start getting loose. You've got the eighth. He nodded, swallowing hard as he grabbed his glove and stepped onto the bullpen mound. His catcher, Jason, crouched behind the plate. Let's get locked in, man. Christian took a deep breath and threw his first warm-up pitch. It missed high. Second pitch. Too far inside. Relax, Jason called out. Trust it. Christian clenched his jaw. I am trusting it. But the ball wasn't going where he wanted it to. The nerves were creeping in just like last time. Stepping onto the mound, Christian jogged onto the field for the eighth inning. The crowd was buzzing. The pressure was palpable. This is your chance, he told himself. Forget the last outing. You got this. He towed the rubber, locked eyes with his catcher, and fired the first pitch. Ball one. He exhaled, shaking it off. Next pitch. Foul ball. Better. He got to a 2-2 count, then reared back for the strikeout pitch. Crack. A sharp line drive into left field. The batter sprinted to first. Christian's stomach sank. Not again. The spiral begins again. The next hitter squared to bunt, trying to advance the runner. Christian fielded it cleanly and fired to second base, but rushed the throw. It sailed high, skipping into the outfield. Both runners advanced. Now, instead of one on first, he had runners on second and third with nobody out. His mind raced. Why can't I just execute? I'm blowing it again. This is exactly what happened last time. He barely heard his coach calling time and jogging to the mound. Coach's visit. Coach Lopez stopped in front of Christian, arms crossed. He didn't look mad. He looked curious. Tell me what's going on right now. Christian shook his head. I don't know. I feel like I have to be perfect. And Coach held up a hand. Stop. Listen to me. Christian swallowed hard. What's your job as a pitcher? Lopez asked. Christian blinked. To get outs. Wrong, Lopez said. Your job is to make the next pitch. Christian stared at him. Not to be perfect, not to erase the mistake, just to make the next pitch. The words settled in his mind. Now, Lopez continued, I want you to forget everything that just happened. Focus on one thing, this batter, one pitch at a time. Christian took a slow breath. Can you do that? He nodded. Good, now show me. A new mindset in action. Christian stepped back onto the mound. The situation hadn't changed. 2 runners in scoring position, nobody out. But something inside him shifted. Make the next pitch. He exhaled and fired. Strike 1. He stepped off the mound, took a breath, then delivered again. Foul ball. 0-2 count. For the first time all night, he felt in control. The next pitch? A perfectly placed slider. Swing and a miss. 1 out. The crowd roared. I stepped forward. Christian wasn't perfect that inning. The next batter hit a sacrifice fly, tying the game. But instead of falling apart, he stayed composed. He got the next hitter to ground out, ending the inning. As he walked off the mound, his coach met him with a nod. That's how you compete, kid. And for the first time in weeks, Christian felt like himself again. Because tonight, he didn't let failure define him. He didn't let one bad pitch turn into an entire bad outing. He focused on the next pitch, and that made all the difference. Chapter 4, The Conversation That Changes Everything. Chapter 4, The Conversation That Changes Everything. Christian sat in the dugout, elbows on his knees, staring out at the field. The game had ended in a walk-off win for the Falcons, but Christian couldn't stop thinking about his outing. He wasn't mad at himself this time, but he wasn't satisfied either. One step forward. That's what tonight had been. Not perfect, not a complete breakthrough, but a step. And for the first time, he realized that maybe that's all he needed. An unexpected visitor. The dugout had mostly cleared out when a shadow fell over him. Christian looked up to see Coach Randall, the team's mental performance coach, standing in front of him. Mind if I sit? Christian nodded, and Randall slid onto the bench beside him. For a moment, they just watched the empty field. Then Randall spoke. I watched you tonight. You battled. Christian exhaled. I guess. Randall tilted his head. Tell me this. What was different about tonight? Christian thought about it. Coach Lopez told me to focus on one thing, the next pitch. Randall nodded. And did it help? Christian hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, it did. The story of a big league reliever. Randall smirked. You remind me of a guy I used to coach a few years ago. Big league reliever now. But when he was in college, he was just like you. Crazy talent, but mentally beat himself up after every bad outing. Christian leaned in, interested. One night he came in for the 9th inning with a 1-run lead, Randall continued. First batter? Walk. Next guy? Error. Then a bloop single. Game tied. You could see it all over his face. He was unraveling. So I walked out to the mound and asked him one question. Do you want to keep reliving the last 3 batters, or do you want to focus on the next one? Christian raised an eyebrow. What did he say? He laughed and said, Coach, I want to focus on the next one. So I told him, then do it. Make the next pitch. Randall grinned. He struck out the next 2 batters, got a ground ball, and we won the game in extra innings. But more importantly, that moment changed him. He finally understood what pitching was really about. Christian sat back. Which is, Randall's expression turned serious, letting go. The art of letting go. Christian let the words settle. Randall leaned forward. You're holding on to failure like it's a weight on your back, carrying it from outing to outing, pitch to pitch. Christian didn't respond because he knew it was true. You think the best pitchers in the world don't give up runs? Randall asked. Christian shook his head. Of course they do, but they don't dwell on it. They don't let one bad outing define them. They have the shortest memory on the team because they know the next call is coming. Christian exhaled. So you're saying I have to forget failure? Randall smiled. No, I'm saying you have to learn from it. Then let it go. Learning, not dwelling. Christian rubbed his forehead. How do I do that? Randall picked up a baseball and tossed it between his hands. After every outing, break it down. Ask yourself 3 things. What did I do well? What do I need to improve? What can I control next time? He tossed the ball to Christian. Answer those, then move on. Because whether you're ready or not, another game is coming. Another call is coming. And you can either be ready for it, or you can still be stuck in the past. Christian turned the ball over in his hands, thinking, It sounds easy when you say it like that. Randall smirked. I never said it was easy, but I promise you, it works. A new commitment. Christian sat in the dugout long after Randall left, letting everything sink in. The best pitchers in the world don't dwell on failure. They learn from it and move on. Could he do that? He didn't have all the answers yet, but he knew one thing. He was done carrying failure with him. That night before heading to his room, Christian pulled out a notebook and wrote 3 questions after every outing. What did I do well? What do I need to improve? What can I control next time? He stared at the words for a moment. Then, for the first time in weeks, he felt lighter. Because now, for the first time, he wasn't just trying to avoid failure. He was learning how to handle it. And that was the real game changer. Chapter 5, Learning How to Let Go. Christian arrived at the field early the next morning, his notebook tucked under his arm. For the first time in a while, he didn't feel the usual weight in his chest when he stepped onto the mound for bullpen work. He wasn't dreading practice. He wasn't obsessing over his last outing. He wasn't replaying every mistake in his head. He had a plan now, and that changed everything. The notebook routine. Before warming up, Christian flipped open his notebook to the page he had written the night before. 3 questions after every outing. What did I do well? What do I need to improve? What can I control next time? He jotted down his answers from last night's game. What did I do well? Attacked hitters instead of avoiding contact. Didn't let one bad pitch ruin my whole outing. Trusted my stuff more in the second half of the inning. What do I need to improve? My body language after giving up a hit. Controlling my emotions after a mistake. Not rushing my delivery under pressure. What can I control next time? My focus on the next pitch. My response to adversity. My self-talk before and during the game. He stared at the words for a moment. Then he closed the notebook. And just like that, he moved on. Bullpen session, a new approach. Christian stepped onto the bullpen mound, feeling lighter than usual. Just make the next pitch. Jason, his catcher, crouched behind the plate. Let's see what you got today, man. Christian nodded, took a deep breath, and fired a fastball. Strike. Another pitch, down and away, right where he wanted it. Then a slider, sharp and tight. Jason grinned. You're looking smooth today. Christian smirked. Because I'm not thinking about yesterday. A test of mental toughness. After practice, Coach Lopez approached Christian. How you feeling? Good, Christian said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. The coach studied him for a moment. We're going to need you in the late innings again this weekend. You ready? Christian nodded. Yes, coach. I'm ready. And for the first time, he meant that too. Game day, the real challenge begins. 2 nights later, Christian sat in the bullpen, watching the scoreboard. It was the 7th inning, and the Falcons were up 3-2. The phone rang. Christian, get hot. He grabbed his glove and started throwing. No panic, no overthinking, no fear, only the next pitch. The 8th inning arrived, and Christian jogged onto the mound. Same situation as last time, but he wasn't the same pitcher anymore. First batter, a soft ground ball to second. 1 out. Next hitter, a fastball on the black. Strike 3. 2 outs. He exhaled, feeling in control of the moment. Then came the third hitter. He got ahead 0-2, but missed his spot on the next pitch. Crack. A double into the gap. The runner stood on second, clapping his hands. The crowd got loud. Christian stepped off the mound, his heart pounding. This was the moment where the old hymn would start spiraling, where he'd start fearing another bad pitch. But not this time. The final test. He took a breath, stepped back on the rubber, and locked in on the catcher's glove. Next pitch. First pitch, fastball called strike. Second pitch, slider, swung on and missed. 0, 2 count. Christian wiped his hand on his pants and took one more deep breath. You don't have to be perfect. Just compete. He fired one last pitch, fastball up in the zone. The hitter swung and missed. Strike 3. The inning was over. Christian walked off the mound without looking at the scoreboard. Because for the first time, he didn't need it to tell him whether he did well. He already knew. The difference maker. As he sat in the dugout, Jake leaned over and nudged him. You finally get it now, don't you? Christian nodded. Yeah, I do. He wasn't pitching to avoid failure anymore. He wasn't pitching to be perfect. He was just competing, one pitch at a time, and that was enough. Chapter 6, the next big test. Chapter 6, the next big test. Christian stood in the bullpen, gripping a baseball, staring out at the field. The scoreboard flashed. Bottom of the 7th, Falcons up 4-3. He already knew what was coming. He had been used in this exact spot before. The pressure moments, the close games. But this time felt different. Because for the first time all season, he wasn't afraid of failing. The call comes. The bullpen phone rang. The bullpen coach picked it up, then turned to Christian. You're in for the 8th. Christian nodded, taking a deep breath as he grabbed his glove. But before he jogged out, he paused. The old Christian would have let doubt creep in, would have wondered, what if I mess up? But tonight he had only one thought. Make the next pitch. And he ran onto the field. A familiar situation, a different Christian. The stadium lights felt blinding as Christian stepped onto the mound. The crowd buzzed. The stakes were high. And yet, he felt calm. He locked in on his catcher and nodded. Next pitch. First batter, ground ball to short, 1 out. Second batter, strikeout on a fastball, 2 outs. Christian exhaled, rolling the ball in his palm. He could feel how much he had changed. Before, he would have been thinking about how close he was to a perfect inning. But now, He was only thinking about his next pitch. He dug his foot into the mound and faced the next hitter. First pitch, fastball on the edge. Called strike. Second pitch, slider just outside. The batter didn't bite. Christian adjusted, feeling in control. Then on the next pitch, crack. A deep fly ball to right field. The crowd held its breath. Christian watched as his right fielder sprinted back, leaped, and missed it. The ball bounced off the wall. The batter sprinted into second base for a two-out double. Christian clenched his jaw. The old habit tries to return. He took a step off the mound. This was the moment that used to break him. The moment when one mistake led to another. The moment where he let a single bad pitch define the entire outing. He took a deep breath, then another. His catcher walked out and crouched next to him. "You good?" Christian nodded. "Just making the next pitch." His catcher smirked. "Yeah, you are." He jogged back to the plate. Christian stepped back on the mound. He wasn't dwelling. He wasn't overthinking. He was just competing, and it felt freeing. A defining moment. The next batter stepped up. He was the cleanup hitter, their best bat. A single could tie the game. But Christian didn't think about that. Just the next pitch. First pitch, fastball just inside. Ball one. He exhaled. "Trust it." Next pitch, slider on the edge. Called strike. Christian nodded. 1-1 count. Now he had control. Next pitch, fastball up and in. The batter swung late and fouled it off. 1-2 count. The crowd got louder. Christian took one more breath. Make the next pitch. He fired a slider low and away. The batter chased it. Strike 3. Christian pumped his fist. The stadium exploded. He had gotten through the inning, and he had done it his way. A different feeling. As Christian walked off the mound, Coach Lopez met him with a clap on the shoulder. "That's what I'm talking about, kid." Christian grinned. Jake jogged over and bumped his fist. "That's what happens when you stop overthinking, man." Christian laughed. "Yeah, it actually works." Jake shook his head. "It's always worked. You just had to believe it." A turning point. The Falcons held on to the lead and won the game. As Christian sat in the dugout, he reflected on everything. The season wasn't over. There would be more high-pressure games, more moments where he had to battle, more times when things wouldn't go his way. But now he knew how to handle it. The bad outings wouldn't define him. The fear wouldn't control him. And perfection? He didn't need it anymore. Because as long as he focused on the next pitch, he would always be ready. Chapter 7. Building the right mindset for the long run. Chapter 7. Building the right mindset for the long run. Christian leaned against the dugout railing, watching as the team finished pre-game warm-ups. It had been 2 weeks since his last big outing, 2 weeks since he finally broke free from the mental weight he had been carrying all season. And in that time, something had changed, not just in his pitching, but in his entire approach to the game. A new routine. Every day before practice, Christian pulled out his notebook, the same one where he wrote his 3 questions after each outing. What did I do well? What do I need to improve? What can I control next time? At first, it felt like just an exercise, but now it was a habit. And he was starting to realize something important. This wasn't just about baseball. This was about life. Helping the younger guys. One afternoon after practice, Christian noticed Drew, a freshman reliever, sitting alone in the bullpen. The kid looked just like Christian had a month ago, head down, staring at the ground, lost in his own thoughts. Christian walked over and sat next to him. "Tough outing?" Drew sighed. "Brutal." Christian nodded. He knew the feeling. "What happened?" "Came in with a 1-run lead, gave up a hit, then walked a guy. Coach pulled me before I could even get an out." Drew shook his head. "I feel like I let the team down." Christian chuckled. "Yeah, I know that feeling." Drew glanced at him. "What did you do when that happened?" Christian smirked and handed him his notebook. "I learned how to move on." Drew opened it and read the 3 questions. He frowned. "This is it." "That's it," Christian said, "because the only way you get better is by learning, and the only way you stay ready is by letting go." Drew exhaled, nodding slowly. So, even the older guys struggle with this? Christian laughed. Yeah, man, we all do. But the best ones figure out how to handle it. Drew smiled for the first time all day. Guess I better start figuring it out too, huh? Yep, Christian said. And if you ever need help, you know where to find me. A conversation with Coach. Later that week, Christian was finishing up his bullpen session when Coach Lopez walked over. Got a minute? Christian wiped sweat off his forehead. Yeah, what's up? Coach leaned against the fence. I've been watching you lately. Something's different. Christian nodded. I stopped playing, scared. Coach smiled. Yeah, I see that. There was a pause before Coach continued. You've always had the stuff, Christian. But now you've got the mindset too. And that's what makes guys last in this game. Christian took a deep breath. He had spent so long believing that his talent alone would define his success. But now he knew the truth. The real difference between good pitchers and great ones. It wasn't skill, it was mental toughness. The call for the postseason. A few days later, Christian got a text. It was from Jake. Congratulations, man. You earned it. Christian raised an eyebrow. Then his phone buzzed again. Coach Lopez. Meet me in my office when you get to the field. A few hours later, he sat across from his coach, waiting. We're making some changes for the playoffs, Coach said. And, Christian asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Coach smiled. You're our go-to guy for late innings now. You've earned it. Christian felt his heart race. A few weeks ago, that pressure would have terrified him. But now he smiled. I'll be ready, Coach. And for the first time in his career, he believed it. A different kind of confidence. As Christian left the office, Jake was waiting outside. So, what's the news? Christian grinned. I'm the guy now. Jake clapped him on the back. That's what happens when you stop running from failure. Christian nodded. Yeah, turns out you were right about that one. They started walking toward the dugout, the postseason just around the corner. Christian didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if he'd dominate or if he'd get rocked. But for the first time, it didn't matter, because no matter what came next, he was ready. Chapter 8, The Final Test. Chapter 8, The Final Test. The air felt different tonight. The conference championship game, a packed stadium, a trip to the Division II NCAA regionals on the line. And in the bottom of the eighth, with a one-run lead and the opposing team's best hitters coming up, the bullpen phone rang. Christian already knew this was his moment. The walk to the mound. As he jogged in from the bullpen, the roar of the crowd surrounded him. He didn't hear it, didn't feel the pressure, didn't think about the what-ifs. He only had one thought: make the next pitch. The first hitter. Christian toed the rubber and locked in on the catcher's glove. First pitch, fastball, called strike. He nodded. Good start. Next pitch, slider, fouled off. 0-2 count. His catcher put down the sign for a high fastball. Christian took a deep breath and fired. Swing and a miss. 1 out. The crowd erupted. The pressure builds. The next batter stepped in, a power hitter. First pitch, fastball just outside. Second pitch, slider, swung on and missed. 1-1 count. Christian exhaled, focusing. Next pitch, changeup, grounded to short. The shortstop scooped it up and fired to first. 2 outs. 1 batter away from escaping the inning. The biggest at-bat of his life. Christian wiped the sweat off his brow. The next batter, the best hitter in the conference. He dug his foot into the mound. He could feel the tension, could feel the moment getting bigger. But instead of fear, he felt ready. His catcher put down the sign. Fastball. Christian nodded and let it fly. Crack! A deep drive to right center field. The crowd gasped. Christian turned, heart pounding. The right fielder sprinted back, jumped at the wall, and made the catch. Inning over. Christian clenched his fist. He had done his job. No panic, no fear, just competing. The final out. The Falcons' closer came in for the ninth and shut the door. They won the championship. The dog pile formed on the mound, players celebrating, fans roaring. But Christian? He stood off to the side for a moment, taking it all in. Because this wasn't about one game. It wasn't about the trophy. It was about everything that had led to this moment. The failures, the doubt, the pressure. He had faced it all, and he had come out stronger. The lesson that changed everything. As Christian jogged toward the celebration, he spotted Coach Randall leaning against the dugout railing. Randall smirked. "Told you, didn't I?" Christian laughed. "Yeah, you did. You finally learned how to let go." Christian nodded. "Yeah, and it made all the difference." Randall patted him on the back. "And that's why you'll be ready for whatever comes next." What it means to be ready. That night, as the team celebrated, Christian sat quietly in the dugout for a moment, thinking about how far he had come and about how many pitchers out there were exactly where he had been, stuck in the cycle of overthinking every pitch, letting failure define them, playing with fear instead of trust. But now, he knew the truth. You don't have to be perfect to succeed. You don't have to fear failure. It's part of the process. The best players aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who learn how to move on. And as long as you focus on the next pitch, you'll always be ready, just like Christian. Chapter 9, Learning to Move Forward. Chapter 9, Learning to Move Forward. If you've made it to the end of Christian's journey, there's a reason this story spoke to you. Maybe you've struggled with the pressure to be perfect. Maybe you've had moments where failure felt like it defined you. Maybe you've overthought, doubted, and feared the next time you stepped on the field. If that's you, then here's the most important lesson of all. Success isn't about avoiding failure. It's about how you respond to it. The truth about baseball and life. Baseball is a game of failure. Even the best hitters in the world fail 7 out of 10 times. Even the greatest pitchers give up hits, blow leads, and lose games. So why do we expect perfection from ourselves? Here's the truth. Failure isn't a stop sign. It's a lesson. Your worst game doesn't define you, but how you respond does. The best athletes aren't perfect. They're just better at moving on. That's what Christian learned, and that's what you need to remember. The power of the next pitch mentality. If there's one thing you take away from this story, let it be this. Great athletes don't dwell on failure. They focus on the next play, the next pitch, the next moment. Because the past, you can't change it. The future, you can't predict it. But the next pitch, that's 100% in your control. And that's where greatness happens. A challenge for you. Whether you're a pitcher, a hitter, an athlete in another sport, or someone chasing a dream, I challenge you to adopt the next pitch mentality. When you fail, don't spiral. Ask yourself, what did I do well? What do I need to improve? What can I control next time? Then, let it go. Move on. Be ready. Because your next opportunity is coming. And when it does, you want to be prepared, not stuck in the past. Final words. Christian's journey wasn't about winning a championship. It wasn't about becoming the best pitcher in the league. It was about learning the one lesson that separates good players from great ones. The past doesn't define you. The next pitch does. So whatever happens next in your life, in sports, in school, in your career, in your relationships, remember this. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to fear failure. You just have to be ready for the next pitch. That's what makes champions. And that's what will make you great. Now go out there and compete with confidence. Your best game is still ahead of you.